Life is not fair and it never promises to be. From the moment you enter this world, you are met with struggle. Some people face more than others, but no one escapes hardship entirely. The reality is harsh, unforgiving, and often overwhelming. Pain, loss, failure, and disappointment are woven into the very fabric of existence. It does not matter how much you wish for ease, life will challenge you regardless. But within this suffering lies something crucial: the opportunity to become stronger. Endurance is not something you are simply born with, it is something you develop. Every difficulty you overcome adds to your strength. Each time you stand up after being knocked down, you become a person who is not easily broken. People who seem unshakable were not gifted with an easier path, they just refused to stay defeated. They took the suffering handed to them and used it to forge resilience. Adversity is not an obstacle, it is a test. It asks you a fundamental question: will you let this break you, or will you rise above it? Every painful experience forces you to make a choice. You can either collapse under the weight of hardship or push forward despite it. And while surrender may seem tempting in moments of exhaustion, it never leads to anything worthwhile. Strength is built in the struggle, never in the absence of it. People often wish for an easier life, free from suffering and discomfort. But what they fail to understand is that ease does not create greatness. A life without struggle is a life without growth. If everything came effortlessly, you would never know what you are capable of. Difficulty is what reveals your true potential. It exposes weaknesses, forces you to confront them, and demands that you improve. Without it, you remain stagnant, and stagnation is the slow death of who you could become. Pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. The way you respond to hardship determines the course of your life. Some allow their suffering to consume them, using it as an excuse to remain powerless. Others use it as fuel to push forward, to build something better. The same fire that destroys one person can forge another into something indestructible. The difference is not in the suffering itself, but in how it is faced. When things get difficult, when everything seems to be working against you, that is not the time to retreat. That is the time to step up, to endure when you feel like quitting, to push forward when the weight of the world seems unbearable. That is what defines you. Strength is not found in comfort. It is earned through persistence, through the refusal to be defeated. The greatest victories are always preceded by the hardest battles. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you feel like you are not capable, not strong enough, not good enough. But those thoughts are not truth, they are fear. Fear that you might fail, fear that it might all be for nothing. But fear is not a reason to stop. It is a signal that you are at the edge of something important, something worth fighting for. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite it. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to take the burden off your shoulders. That responsibility is yours alone. But that is not a tragedy, it is an opportunity. It means that you have the power to change your circumstances, to shape your future. The world may be tough, but you are tougher. Every scar, every hardship, every struggle has prepared you for this. Keep moving forward, because that is the only way to prove what you are truly capable of. Life is a constant battle between chaos and order. Order is the structure you build, the predictability you rely on, the security that keeps everything from falling apart. Chaos is the unknown, the unpredictable, the force that disrupts what you thought was stable. Too much order, and life becomes stagnant, repetitive, and lifeless. Too much chaos, and everything crumbles into confusion and despair. Struggle emerges when you find yourself at the border between these two forces, when the life you knew is no longer enough, but the new path ahead is uncertain and demanding. But growth does not happen in comfort. Comfort is the realm of order, where everything is familiar and predictable. But there comes a time when order becomes suffocating, when routine starts to feel like a prison. The moment you seek change, the moment you challenge yourself, you step into chaos. This is why struggle feels overwhelming. It is the price you pay for transformation. You are breaking old patterns, stepping beyond what you once thought possible. And in doing so, you are forcing yourself to become something more. People often fear chaos because it threatens what they know. It brings uncertainty, risk, and the possibility of failure. But avoiding chaos entirely means avoiding growth. It means clinging to what is safe, even when it no longer serves you. The most meaningful progress happens when you willingly face chaos, when you confront the unknown and allow yourself to struggle through it. It is in that place of difficulty where you discover what you are truly capable of. Struggle is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. It means you are pushing past the limits of who you used to be, the discomfort, the frustration, the doubt. All of it is part of the process. A person who refuses to engage with chaos remains trapped in the same patterns, repeating the same mistakes, living the same predictable life. But those who embrace struggle, who step into the unknown despite the fear, are the ones who create something meaningful. There is no transformation without destruction. To build something new, something old must be torn down. This is why struggle feels like chaos. It is the breaking apart of what once was, the dismantling of the structures that kept you stagnant. In the moment, it feels like everything is falling apart. But what is really happening is that something better is being built. The pain of transformation is temporary. The strength it brings is permanent. Most people do not change until they are forced to. They wait until the chaos is so overwhelming that they have no choice but to act. But growth does not have to come from crisis alone. It can come from the decision to willingly face the challenge, to step into discomfort and struggle before life forces your hand. Those who take on this responsibility, who do not wait for chaos to consume them, are the ones who truly shape their own destiny. It is easy to mistake struggle for failure. When everything feels uncertain, when you are doubting yourself, when nothing seems to be working, it is tempting to believe you have made a mistake. But struggle is not failure, it is proof that you are in motion. If you feel like you are fighting against chaos, it means you are stepping into something bigger than yourself. It means you are not standing still. The balance between chaos and order is where true growth happens. Too much stability and you become complacent. Too much chaos and you become lost. But at the edge where both forces meet, you are alive. You are learning, adapting, becoming more than you were before. This is where you find meaning, not in the absence of struggle, but in the willingness to face it head on. Change does not happen all at once. People often look at the massive distance between where they are and where they want to be and feel paralyzed. The goal seems too big, the road too long, and the obstacles too overwhelming. But no great transformation happens in a single leap. Progress is built one small step at a time. Even the smallest movement forward is movement nonetheless, and in a course time, those small steps accumulate into something extraordinary. It is easy to underestimate the power of a single action. A single push-up seems insignificant. Writing a single sentence does not feel like progress. Reading one page of a book does not make you feel any smarter. But these small actions, repeated consistently, are the foundation of all success. The most capable, disciplined, and accomplished individuals are not those who take massive leaps sporadically, but those who take small, deliberate steps every single day. People get caught up in the illusion that they must have everything figured out before they begin. They wait for motivation, for the perfect plan, for certainty. But waiting accomplishes nothing. The only thing that matters is action, no matter how small. If all you can do today is one minor task that moves you an inch forward, that is enough. An inch forward is still progress, and progress, however slow, is infinitely better than stagnation. Failure to move at all comes from the belief that small efforts do not count. This is a dangerous mindset because it leads to inaction. A person who refuses to take a single step because they cannot see immediate results remains trapped in the same place, day after day, year after year. But those who trust the process, who take small actions without needing instant rewards, eventually wake up to find themselves miles ahead of where they started. Momentum is built through movement, not thought. Thinking about change is not the same as taking action. Planning is not the same as doing. A single step, no matter how insignificant it seems, creates momentum. Once movement begins, even in the smallest form, the next step becomes easier. Each action strengthens your ability to act again, and before long, what once felt impossible becomes second nature. When people feel overwhelmed by the weight of everything they need to do, they forget that all they ever need to focus on is the next step, not the entire journey, not every possible obstacle, not the fear of failure, just the next step. It is not about lifting the heaviest weight, writing the entire book, or mastering the new skill in one attempt. It is about lifting what you can today, writing the next sentence, practicing for a few minutes, then repeating that process over and over again. Doubt thrives in inaction. The more time spent thinking about what needs to be done instead of doing it, the more overwhelming it becomes. But the moment action is taken, doubt loses its grip. A single step forward disrupts the cycle of hesitation and fear. It does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be impressive. It just needs to happen. There is no shortcut to progress. There is only effort repeated over time until the results appear. Small steps compound, tiny actions stack up. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is talent or luck, but the willingness to take one more step, no matter how small, every single day. Life is heavy. It does not come without suffering, without pain, without the weight of responsibility pressing down on you. There is no escaping this reality. No one gets a free pass. No one walks through life untouched by hardship. Some burdens are given to you, others are consequences of your own choices, but either way, they must be carried. The question is not whether you will face difficulties, it is whether you will carry them with strength or allow them to break you. There is a part of you that wants to drop everything, to walk away from the struggle, to reject the weight placed upon your shoulders. That impulse is understandable. The burden can seem unbearable at times, but abandoning it does not make it disappear. Ignoring responsibility does not remove it, it only makes it heavier in the long run. Problems left unresolved do not fade away, they grow in the shadows, becoming more difficult to confront later. Hardship is not a choice, but your response to it is. Some people collapse under their burdens, cursing the unfairness of it all, blaming the world for their suffering, demanding that others ease their load. Others stand up straight, adjust their grip, and bear the weight with dignity. The same suffering that destroys one person can forge another into something unshakable. The difference is not in the burden itself, but in how it is carried. There is no nobility in denying hardship and pretending it does not exist and hoping that life will become easier if you simply wait. Strength is not found in avoidance, it is found in confronting the difficulties head on. A person who refuses to acknowledge their burdens will always be controlled by them. But one who takes responsibility, who accepts the weight without resentment, becomes someone capable of enduring what others cannot. Carrying your burden does not mean you do not struggle. It does not mean the weight does not crush you at times. It means you refuse to let it define you as a victim. It means that even when your legs tremble under the load, you keep walking. There will be moments when you want to quit, when exhaustion threatens to overwhelm you. Those moments are where resilience is built, where you prove to yourself what you are capable of. There is a kind of meaning found in struggle that cannot be found anywhere else. A person who carries nothing, who avoids hardship at all costs, who seeks only comfort and ease may think they have found a way to escape suffering. But they have only traded one kind of suffering for another, the suffering of purposelessness, of weakness, of a life without substance. There is no avoiding pain, but there is a difference between pain that breaks you and pain that shapes you. If you do not take up your burden willingly, it will be forced upon you in ways you do not expect. Neglected responsibilities turn into crises. Ignored struggles compound over time. A person who refuses to bear their weight eventually becomes a burden themselves on their family, on their friends, on society. The weight does not disappear, it simply shifts onto others, and that is a selfish existence. It is not enough to carry your burden, you must carry it well. Resentment will only make it heavier. Blaming others will only make you weaker. Bitterness will only make you blind to the strength you are developing. If you must bear weight, bear it with purpose. Bear it with the knowledge that enduring hardship with grace sets you apart from those who collapse under it. You do not get to choose whether life is difficult. You only get to choose whether you will face it as someone who rises to the challenge or as someone who crumbles. The world does not reward those who refuse to carry their weight. It does not pity those who refuse to act. It respects those who stand, who face the storm, who refuse to let hardship turn them into something lesser. Greatness is built on the ability to endure. It is not found in luck, in comfort, in an easy path. It is found in those who take on what others refuse to. In those who carry what must be carried without complaint, without weakness, without allowing the weight to crush their spirit. The strongest people are not those who were given the lightest loads, they are the ones who learned how to bear the heaviest ones. Every step forward, every battle fought, every hardship endured shapes you. The weight you carry today may seem unbearable, but in time it will become the very thing that makes you unbreakable. The burden is not just something to suffer through, it is the process through which you are transformed into someone capable of carrying even more. There will never be a moment when life is entirely free of burdens. But if you learn to carry them properly, they will not be chains that drag you down. They will be the very thing that gives you the strength to rise. Life is difficult. It is filled with suffering, setbacks, and moments of overwhelming doubt. No one is spared from pain. No one walks through life untouched by hardship. The natural instinct is to resist struggle, to seek comfort, to avoid anything that makes existence more difficult than it already is. But in that avoidance, something essential is lost. Meaning does not emerge from ease. It is found in the very depths of adversity, in the willingness to confront suffering rather than run from it. People often search for purpose as if it is something to be discovered, something that will reveal itself without effort. They wait for inspiration, for clarity, for some external force to show them what they are meant to do. The purpose is not given, it is built. And it is built in struggle. It takes form when you push through difficulty, when you refuse to surrender to despair, when you bear your burdens instead of wishing they would disappear. Struggle forces you to grow. It strips away the illusions of who you think you are and reveals what you are truly made of. Without adversity, there is no transformation. Without resistance, there is no strength. A person who never faces hardship remains untested, and an untested life is an empty one. It is through struggle that you carve out a sense of identity, that you learn what you are capable of, that you prove to yourself that you can endure. Comfort is seductive. It whispers that there is no need to push yourself, that you should take the easier path, that struggle is unnecessary. But comfort alone is not fulfilling, dulls the senses, weakens the mind, and leaves a person without direction. The most miserable people are not the ones who have struggled the most. They are the ones who have struggled the least, who have never had to fight for something, who have never been forced to find out how strong they truly are. There is something deeply human about overcoming hardship. The moments that shape a person's life are not the easy ones, they are the moments of great challenge. The times when everything seems to be falling apart, when failure seems inevitable, when doubt creeps in and whispers that it is time to give up. It is in those moments when everything is against you and you choose to push forward anyway that real meaning takes root. Struggle is not just an obstacle to overcome, it is the very thing that gives life depth. So a person who has suffered deeply and overcome their suffering has something that others do not, a sense of purpose that is earned. They understand what it means to fight for something, to endure pain for the sake of growth, to find meaning not despite hardship, but because of it. They are not lost because they have walked through darkness and found their way forward. Avoiding struggle does not eliminate it, it only postpones it. A person who refuses to face difficulty today will face an even greater difficulty tomorrow. Problems do not disappear simply because they are ignored. They grow in the shadows, waiting to resurface when you are least prepared. But those who take on their struggles willingly, who step into the fire instead of shrinking from it, find themselves growing stronger with every battle fought. There is a certain pride that comes from knowing you have endured what others could not, that you have stood in the face of suffering and refused to be broken by it, that you have shaped yourself into someone who does not back down when life becomes difficult. That kind of strength cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be inherited. It can only be earned through struggle. Even the smallest victories in adversity carry deep significance. The moment you choose to keep going when quitting seems easier, the moment you take one more step, despite the weight on your shoulders, the moment you refuse to let failure define you, those are the moments where meaning is built, not in the absence of hardship, but in the decision to face it head on. No one is coming to save you from the challenges of life. No one is going to remove all obstacles from your path. But that is not a tragedy, it is an opportunity. Because meaning is not something you wait for, it is something you create. And you create it through action, through effort, through the willingness to struggle for something greater than yourself. There will never be a version of life that is free from difficulty, but there can be a version of yourself that is strong enough to face it. And in that strength, in that struggle, in that refusal to surrender, something powerful emerges. A sense of purpose that no amount of comfort could ever provide, a deep understanding that your suffering was not in vain, and a certainty that you are capable of bearing far more than you once believed. Struggle does not take meaning from life, it gives meaning to life. The most fulfilling moments, the deepest connections, the greatest achievements are all built upon hardship endured and overcome. The path is never easy, but it was never meant to be. And that is precisely why it matters. Resentment is a poison. It builds slowly, feeding on disappointment, injustice, and perceived slights. It whispers that the world is unfair, that others have taken what should have been yours, that you are a victim of forces beyond your control. It feels justified, even righteous, as if holding on to it gives you power. But it does not. It robs you of strength, of clarity, of the ability to move forward. It traps you in a cycle of bitterness, where every setback is another reason to see rather than act. Blame is easy. It's far easier to point a finger at someone else than to take responsibility for your own life. Resentment allows you to avoid effort, to avoid struggle, to tell yourself that things would be better if only others had treated you differently. But the harsh truth is that no amount of resentment will change your circumstances. No amount of bitterness will move you forward. The only way out is through action, not blame. There is injustice in the world. That much is undeniable. You will be wronged. You will be overlooked. You will be treated unfairly at times, but dwelling on that reality does nothing to change it. Life does not reward those who sit in their resentment, waiting for the world to make things right. It rewards those who take what they have and use it to build something better, regardless of how unfair the starting point may be. Resentment distorts reality. The more you feed it, the more everything begins to seem like an attack, a slight, an insult. It blinds you to the opportunities in front of you because you are too busy tallying up the ways in which you have been wronged. It convinces you that others are the enemy, that their success is your failure, that the world is conspiring against you. And the longer you hold on to that belief, the more powerless you become. Bitterness turns you against yourself. It does not just make you angry at others, it makes you angry at life, at effort, at the very idea that things could improve. It drains you of motivation, of hope, of the energy needed to build something worthwhile. A person consumed by resentment is a person who has given up without realizing it, choosing to nurse their wounds instead of healing them. People who blame the world for their problems rarely improve their lives. That is because blame is an excuse, a way of justifying inaction. It allows you to stay exactly where you are, convinced that progress is impossible because others have stacked the odds against you. But those who rise above, who refuse to let resentment dictate their choices, are the ones who break free. They do not waste time fuming over what should have been. They focus on what can still be. Resentment is a seductive trap. It gives you something to hold on to, a reason to justify your failures, a way to explain why others have what you do not. But it is a dead end. It does not inspire action, it paralyzes it. It does not bring justice, it deepens suffering. The only way forward is to let it go, to turn your focus away from what has been taken from you and toward what you are still capable of building. There is nothing to gain from dwelling on unfairness. The world will not rearrange itself to make things even. You can spend years nursing a grudge, replaying old wounds, resenting those who had more opportunities, more luck, more advantages. But none of that time will bring you closer to what you want. It will only leave you bitter, exhausted, and stuck in the same place you started. Action is the antidote to resentment. The moment you shift your focus from blame to effort, from anger to progress, everything changes. The world does not care how unfair things have been. It only responds to what you do next. And the people who refuse to be broken by bitterness, who choose to push forward rather than sit in resentment, are the ones who find meaning in the struggle rather than despair. Resentment thrives in passivity. It grows strongest in those who refuse to take control of their own lives. The best way to destroy it is to take action, to prove to yourself that you are not powerless, that your future is not determined by those who wronged you, but by what you do now. Every moment spent resenting is a moment wasted, a moment that could have been used to build something stronger, something meaningful, something real. The choice is always there. You can let bitterness consume you, let it dictate your actions, let it shape your identity. Or you can reject it, take control, and refuse to be defined by resentment. One path leads nowhere but deeper into misery. The other leads to freedom. It is not an easy choice, but it is the only one that offers a way forward. The world does not owe you fairness. It does not guarantee justice, but it does reward effort, resilience, and the refusal to surrender to bitterness. Resentment will never give you the life you want. Only action will. Life without direction is suffering without purpose. It is easy to fall into despair when nothing ahead of you is worth striving for. The weight of existence becomes unbearable when there is no aim, no pursuit, no vision pulling you forward. A person without a goal drifts, and drifting leads only to stagnation. If you are lost, if you are drowning in meaninglessness, the first step is not to lament your situation, is to aim at something higher. The struggle of life is not optional. You will suffer. You will experience setbacks, loss, and moments of overwhelming doubt. But if you are suffering without an aim, the pain is empty, it leads nowhere. When you have something to strive toward, something deeply meaningful, that suffering transforms. It becomes the price you willingly pay for something greater, something worth the hardship. Aimlessness is not freedom. It seems appealing at first, no responsibilities, no expectations, no pressure. But it quickly turns into a trap, a slow descent into hopelessness. Without a goal, without something meaningful to pursue, life becomes an unbearable cycle of repetition. People without direction seek distractions to numb the emptiness, but distractions do not fill the void. Only purpose does. The higher the aim, the greater the transformation. If you aim at nothing, you will achieve nothing. But if you set your sights on something difficult, something that forces you to grow, something that demands effort and sacrifice, you will become someone capable of more than you ever imagined. The person who takes on a great responsibility, who strives toward a difficult but meaningful goal, is not crushed by suffering in the same way as one who drifts without purpose. A goal gives structure to chaos. It takes the confusion and disorder of life and turns it into something comprehensible. It gives you something to orient yourself towards, something to measure progress against, something to keep you from being swallowed by the abyss. It does not eliminate hardship, but it makes hardship bearable because it places suffering within the context of a greater pursuit. Not all goals are worth chasing. Many people spend years pursuing things that leave them empty in the end. Wealth for the sake of wealth, status for the sake of validation, pleasure for the sake of distraction. These aims do not bring fulfillment. They may provide temporary satisfaction, but they do not build something lasting. A true aim is something deeper, something that aligns with the highest version of yourself, something that makes the struggle of life worth enduring. You will not find the perfect goal immediately. You will not wake up one day with complete clarity about what you must pursue. But that is no excuse for inaction. If you do not know what your highest aim is, pick something better than where you are now and move toward it. As you progress, your vision will become clearer. The important thing is to start, to take the first step, to refuse to remain stagnant. A meaningful goal will demand sacrifice. It will require you to let go of comfort, to abandon old habits, to push beyond your current limitations. That is the price of growth. People who refuse to pay that price remain exactly where they're frustrated, resentful, blaming the world for their stagnation instead of aiming higher and working towards something better. Fear will try to hold you back. The moment you aim at something difficult, something truly meaningful, doubt will creep in. You will wonder if you are capable, if you are worthy, if you are setting yourself up for failure. But the alternative is far worse. The alternative is to aim at nothing, to never try, to never know what you could have achieved if only you had the courage to pursue something greater. The world is harsh, but is not indifferent to effort. Those who aim higher, who take on responsibility, who set their sights on something meaningful and chase it relentlessly, those are the ones who find purpose. They are the ones who, despite suffering, despite setbacks, despite the immense difficulty of existence, wake up each day with a reason to keep going. You must choose your aim wisely. It must be something that challenges you, something that requires effort, something that pushes you beyond where you are now. And when you find it, you must pursue it with everything you have. It will not be easy, but ease is not the goal. Growth is, and growth only comes to those who strive towards something beyond themselves. Aim high, aim with purpose, and refuse to remain stagnant. The greatest tragedy is not failure, it is never having tried to become more than you are now.